desired ourselves. Here's an example of a comparison. Another way to think about this statement without the comparison would be, my sister works part-time and picks her kids up from school every day. Here's another example I've heard quite often at my job. They don't work as hard as I do. And here's how it would sound without the comparison using specific information. I completed 4 reports this week, and my coworker completed 2. We've removed the emotion from those statements, leaving only the facts. Good judgments can also be harmful. When I was little, parents were told that they should say, "You're so smart," to their kids. This is a type of judgment that is labeling someone in a way that seems positive until that person fails. That failure contradicts the idea that the individual is smart. So if they fail, they are no longer smart, and therefore they should stop trying, because trying new things and failing would continue to prove that the child is no longer smart. Sometimes we give compliments that we think are positive, but are not very helpful. If feedback is vague, it doesn't let the receiver know what it was that enriched the feedback giver's life. If you give positive but vague feedback to a speaker, such as, "That talk was great," it doesn't let the presenter know what was specifically important, what helped them fill their needs. When giving feedback, try to add what was really helpful to you. I can use the information about pollinators in that talk to improve my garden. I admit I have a problem. Sometimes I should all over myself. Nobody enjoys it when that happens. I tell myself I should do something. And when I do that, that doesn't make me want to do the thing I'm supposed to do. The word should has enormous power to create shame and guilt. We are responsible for our own thoughts, feelings, and actions. This is something that can be hard to process or realize about ourselves. Phrases like have to or makes me feel, for instance, "You make me feel guilty," are examples of how language facilitates denial of personal responsibility. Here are some examples of denying personal responsibility. I cleaned my room because I had to. I lied to the client because the boss told me to. I started smoking because all my friends did. It's important to be conscious of our responsibility for how we behave, think, and feel. We can replace language that implies lack of choice with language that acknowledges choice. Let's rephrase the comments we just heard. I have to work out becomes I choose to work out so that I can be healthy. I cleaned my room because I had to becomes if I clean my room, I will get more screen time. I started smoking becomes I started smoking because I had a need for connection with my friends that smoked. Another one of the 4 Ds is communicating our desires as demands. A demand explicitly or implicitly threatens the listeners with blame or punishment if they fail to comply. We can never make people do anything. When people hear a demand, they only see 2 options, submit or rebel. Examples. Clean your room with a threat of, or I will take your toys away. If the child complies, they will probably complain and not clean their room very well. You can rephrase this statement to add more information for why the request is being made. Cleaning your room is one of the chores we agreed upon as a family. You could also add, I'm concerned that someone will step on a Lego and hurt themselves. And you can also add a realistic consequence. If you don't do your laundry, you will not have clean clothes to wear. If the person rebels, assess if what you said could be a demand. If you react with guilt tripping or moping, you likely demanded instead of requested. You can assess for the underlying feeling and need that explains your reaction and also the other person's feelings and needs for why they are unwilling to do what you have requested. We need to ask ourselves, what do I want this person to do? What do I want this person's reasons to be for doing what I'm asking? Communication, or communicating our desires as demands, is another form of language that blocks compassion. Deserve-oriented language implies that in order for an action to be worthwhile, a reward or punishment must be given. The concept that certain actions merit punishment or reward implies that people deserve what happens to them. It assumes badness or goodness, but much of what happens to us is neither good nor bad. Fear of punishment creates a focus on consequences, not on values. When you think you've done something bad, then you deserve to suffer. Or if you think you're being forced to do something, even if you get a punishment or reward, you're more reluctant to do it. Thinking based on who deserves what blocks compassionate communication. We would connect better if we express our feelings and needs for the desired behavior. We have to separate our evaluations from our observations. Observations describe events or statements in factual terms. They do not add evaluation. They don't create a story about the event or comment. They do not assign motive or label or diagnose. We want to stick to the facts and avoid evaluation and keep it neutral. And do your best to be intentional. When we combine observation with evaluation, we decrease the likelihood that others will hear our intended message. By just observing and not evaluating, we allow ourselves to see the world as it truly is, without storytelling, without trying to change reality. Adding our story is different than storytelling. Barb has a great example of this.
So this story is from the book called Loving What Is by Byron Katie. So she said she went into a public restroom that just had one stall, and she was standing in line waiting to go next, and she heard beautiful singing coming from inside the stall. So she's waiting, and then out of the stall comes a tall, statuesque woman dressed to the nines, beautiful makeup, and she thought, wow, maybe this woman is an opera singer, and I just got an opportunity to hear a little bit of her music, and she was so impressed, and she smiled and goes into the stall, and then she sits down, and it's all wet. And she said, oh my gosh, how rude that opera singer was. And then she was sitting there thinking, well, maybe she's not a cis woman, maybe she's a trans woman. And she actually stood up to do her business and was not considerate at all. And so she's having all these thoughts, and she cleans herself up and turns around and flushes the toilet, and it's like a fountain, and it goes everywhere. And she realizes why the seat was wet.
So observation can be distorted by surrounding information and our own storytelling. Many years ago, I noticed an interesting interaction between a couple of coworkers. One coworker, Trudy, would try to say good morning to our other coworker, Blair. Of course, I changed the names for, to protect the innocent. Trudy noticed that sometimes Blair wouldn't say good morning back to her. This started to bother Trudy, and day after day, she would say, good morning, Blair, more and more aggressively to try to get some kind of a response or reaction. And she would complain about this to the rest of us about how rude it was that Blair was never acknowledging her when she tried to get her to greet her every day. And we gently let Trudy know that we probably wouldn't reply to her either, based on the way she was saying it. So we told her that maybe if she said it in a more friendly tone, Blair would be more likely to reply. So as soon as Trudy changed her tone and changed her expectations about getting a response in return, Blair started saying good morning to Trudy again. Generalizing and exaggerating are also forms of evaluation. It is important to stay away from words like always, never, ever, whenever, frequently, and seldom. These words generalize the frequency of what is happening. It's important to stick to examples or situations that examine how and what we are feeling in the moment, which is more useful for connecting with others. Here are some examples of evaluations and judgments and how we can attempt to reframe these statements. You never wash the dishes. You see the never in there? Worded this way, this comment immediately makes the other person defensive and try to find exceptions to the statement. We can rephrase it as an observation. I don't think you washed the dishes this week. Or, I washed the dishes 3 times this week. Here's another example. That car thinks they own the road and cut me off on purpose. Here the speaker is assigned motive to the behavior. We don't know why the person is driving in that manner, but it's unlikely that it has anything to do with a personal attack on any other driver. Rephrased, we would just observe what is happening in the moment. The car moved into the lane in front of me. Here's some more examples for you. My coworker is careless with the details of the report. Careless is a judgment that is not very specific and does not address the root cause of the issue. You could say it like this: I noticed 3 typos on this report. And this one I always find kind of funny. Peter is ugly. This comment uses an adjective in a way that doesn't signify an evaluation is being made. It sounds like it could be a fact, but it is actually an opinion. If we rephrase it so it is more clear that this is actually an opinion, it would sound something more like this: Peter's looks don't appeal to me. I use that a lot now. Not about Peter, in general, about things. When I'm like, oh, this doesn't appeal to me, and I feel like it's much more neutral. To make better observations, we must practice mindfulness and learn to just observe. By observing the situation or person, it can help us understand their feelings and needs in the moment. By removing the evaluation from our statements, that can be really difficult at first, and we may not realize how often we're adding labels, motive, and stories to a situation. It's important to recognize our feelings as we move through the world. If we can remove the emotion, we may be able to see the events more clearly and will be better able to express the observation without evaluation. Pausing before speaking gives us time to reflect, notice our feelings and needs, and notice the other person's feelings and needs, and make a more appropriate statement without judgment. If we can learn to remove judgment from our thoughts and statements, it becomes easier to exist in a place where we can be more empathetic toward ourselves and others. So here's some homework for you to consider. Choose one day this week and try to notice when you or the other people around you that you engage with have used any of the 4 Ds. Don't try to make any changes or interact with anyone differently, but just spend some time reflecting on any judgments you notice. I'm going to guess that you will start to hear many more than you would have expected. In conclusion, removing judgment from observations can create an opening for connection without defensiveness. When we separate our observations from evaluations and judgments, we increase the likelihood that others will hear our intended message. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. The offering that we take each Sunday isn't just a stale habit. It's an opportunity to reconnect to this place and to these people. Our offering is an affirmation, a yes. When we give, we say yes to something we value. With our gifts freely given, may we say yes to the values of our faith. May our offering help us practice Unitarian Universalism within and beyond our congregation as the tools to empower our mission. You are now invited to participate in the blessing of giving as the ushers come among you to accept the gifts of our congregation. You may also give via the QR code on the back of the order of service.
Good evening. I'm very glad to spend some time with you this evening. How many of you have I not been with before? How many have never been with me before or been exposed to? Okay, and how many have had a little bit of experience, at least, with nonviolent communication? Okay, a little bit. I'll try not to go too fast for those who
That was Marshall, by the way. He's passed away now. Well,
So what did I hear when I put those ears on? This is what the children at home are saying to you when they say no. This is what the other person is saying to you. This is what they're singing when they say, the problem with you is, if you have giraffe ears on, here's what you hear going on inside that person. They're singing this song. See me beautiful, look for the best in me. That's what I really am, and all I wanna be. It may take some time, it may be hard to find, but see me beautiful. See me beautiful each and every day. Could you take a chance? Could you find a way to see me shining through in everything I do, and see me beautiful?
Your joy is multiplied in its sharing. Your sorrow is lightened in its sharing. The stories that we share weave together to strengthen our community as we care for one another. May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, to each other. You're welcome to come pick up a stone or stones from the table, infuse them with your joy or your sorrow, and place them in the singing bowl where the energy will ripple out to be held by all of us. If you'd like to share something important in your heart, please come up and speak directly into the microphone. If you have submitted a joy or sorrow via text, I will read it aloud. All are welcome to participate in these ways. One for the joys, one for the sorrows, and one for the strength of this gathered community, that we can support you and bring you peace. Now, please rise if you are willing and able to sing our second hymn. It's number 186 in the gray hymnal. Grieve not your heart grieve not your heart.
And
our closing words are, given the complexity of communication, transformation occurs most readily through small shifts sustained over time.